Ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country and around the world, my favorite mayor in America is back, and he couldn't be back at a more important time. Everything we talked about when he was on last time has come full circle. Independents are at the forefront of the national discussion. They are going to be incredibly important and critical in determining the next president. And the movement is underway. And as I said a year ago, and I'll say now, I think we've got no better representation of the independent movement than America's independent mayor. Our friend, the great and powerful Mayor Yemi Mobolade, is back on Independent Americans. Welcome back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for having me. It feels good to be with you. It feels like being anytime I'm with other independents, I feel like I'm at home. So it's good to see you again, Paul.
Well, that I think that home is growing, and we need leaders like you more than ever. It went by fast, huh? Doesn't it feel like we were just talking a couple weeks ago?
Oh my goodness, it did. I mentioned to you earlier that it feels like we picked up from where we left, just like you and I spoke yesterday. It's a testament to your energy, your leadership, and the good work that you are doing. So thank you for helping us tell the story of many of us that are independents, which, by the way, this is most of America.
That we've seen it right now. The case is being made, and I think America is waking up. But let me ask you the question I asked last time. Tell us, please, Mr. Mayor, where are you and how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good. The job is hard. The job is good. It's the hardest job I've ever done and the most rewarding job I've ever done. I'm also learning that it feels weird to say because one of my core values is humility, but I'll just go ahead and be courageous to say that I'm also learning that I'm actually good at it. I'm at the right place at the right time. I have a great team. I can't state that enough. I'm hearing that from the community, even from some key leaders in the community that look at me and say, "You've put together a great team." I may not always have the answers, but I know how to go and get the answers. So I want to shout out to my team. If any of them are watching this, thank you for being on my team.
You are good at it, and part of being good at it is putting together a team, right? And that's maybe where we could start. It's been almost a year. I think you were on June of last year. After almost a year of this, how's it going? How do you think it's going? How do you feel about this year or so?
So far, so good. I mentioned being at the right place at the right time. We're in a presidential election year, and politics is everything is heightened. Values, perspective, people on edge, and I feel like even on the local level, it can feel like everything feels heightened politically. And I do feel I'm in the right place at the right time as an independent to many times to just de-escalate the political dynamic and just focus on what's right for the people of Colorado Springs. So it's going really well. The countdown is ticking. There's a Latin phrase called tempus fugit, which means time is fleeing. Time flees. You see that Latin phrase on some of the old grandfather clocks. And so it's weird that I'm almost a year into this job. And I actually want to share this with you. This is a countdown clock. I really do have a countdown clock.
Wow.
So it says 1098. That's how many more days, Paul, I have left in my administration. I got this actually from Harvard and the Bloomberg Cities program, which I got to participate with 29 other mayors from across the country. And they sent us this as a gift. And it says, make every day count. So that's what I'm working on, making every day, every minute, every hour count.
I love it. I would not be surprised if that countdown is cut short because you were offered other opportunities.
Yeah.
But I know you do have that great humility. And you mentioned Bloomberg. I think there's a lot of folks that look at Mayor Bloomberg as an example of an independent who could get things done, who can make things work, especially at the city level. Let me ask you, please, Mr. Mayor, what's the advantage of being an independent as a mayor right now, reflecting on this last year versus being a Republican and a Democrat, especially in this toxic environment? You are a very positive, unifying person. I called you a hurricane of positivity, and I think that hurricane is growing. But what's the practical advantages of being an independent versus being a Republican or a Democrat?
Well, let's get that right because I embraced both of your compliments of me the last time. You called me Captain Positivity, and you also called me a Hurricane of Hope. Which,
There you go.
gosh, love that. You know what's beautiful about that, Paul, is I it's a good reminder of what the work I'm doing, and I mean it with all sincerity and seriousness. It's when the work gets hard, I'm reminded that my story is a hopeful one for so many people, not just in my city and state, but also in the country and around the world. And part of that story of hope is the independent nature of my political leadership. It feels good to not be an R or D. Not that there's anything wrong with being a Republican or Democrat, but what this means for me is that I'm not beholden to any political party. I'm not beholden on the local level. I'm not beholden to any power structure or good old boys club. I am beholden to the people of Colorado Springs. I get to be independent in my decision making. And sometimes when people on the R&D side will pull me aside and say, I thought you would make a decision because you're a Democrat. I'm like, I'm not a Democrat. I thought you make a decision because you're a Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm a great citizen of Colorado Springs, and I'm putting the needs of our residents ahead of any kind of political party. And that's refreshing to many of our local residents. And I'm reminded of that almost every day. And
Mm.
so it's a great place to be. It feels freeing. It feels freeing to completely.
You know, Mr. Mayor, a lot of folks, I think look at our independent movement through the prism of the presidency, and I want to get to that and get your thoughts on that in a second. But a lot of folks, who aren't as knowledgeable will say independents can't win, right? That's what you hear a lot. Independents can't win. You have to pick a side. And I think, you've shown that you don't have to pick a side, that you can win, and that you can get things done in a really powerful way. Do you find yourself hamstrung ever where a Democrat or Republican could look to their base and say, hey, I got these guys, I know they're in my corner? It's got to be harder, right? You got to work harder, you got to work
Oh
longer,
yeah,
right? Because
right.
there's no gimmies, right? Can you talk about that? And are you seeing more independence in Colorado? Young people, volunteers, people either that were a part of your campaign or that were part of your staff that are now running themselves as independents because they saw that you can do it?
Absolutely. I'm talking to more and more people who want to run as independents. I think my campaign win, and it was a win for for Colorado Springs. It was a win for the great state of Colorado, and more people are saying it can be done. You're right, Paul. It is it is a harder way to go because you don't have a natural tribe,
Mm.
and sometimes that tribe comes with that vehicle that's able to accelerate you into office. But it's a lot more work, but it's good work. And if you're not willing to do the work, I'd say that you probably shouldn't be in office to begin with. But it is possible to win an independent. It is possible to connect with the hearts and minds of many Americans who are also in this massive middle of independence. Let me just give you some perspective. In the state of Colorado, you probably know this. We have this third political party called U's, which means unaffiliated. So you have Republicans, you have Democrat, and then you have U's. I'm a U. Um, I call us the fastest growing political party in the state of Colorado. We're over 50% now. Unaffiliated, what we're saying is that not that we don't affiliate to anything. We don't want to affiliate to political parties, but we are affiliated to values. We're affiliated to the things that matter and not to the political extremes and the fighting and the division. So we're seeing the use just grow so fast, and it's all thanks to some of the chaos that's happening in our nation. And I'm glad we're seeing a growth in that because sometimes things have to get worse for it to get better. So I do believe that it's going to get better. We're going to get back to the heart and soul of what makes us as Americans, not blue or red, but red, white, and blue.
Mr. Mayor, what have you been focused on? What have you gotten done, and what do you want to get done? Can we talk like some brass tacks here? Because I want people to know it's not just hope is not a course of action, as they used to say in the military. You also got to GSD, get shit done. So can you talk about
Yes.
what you've
Hey,
been working?
you stole it. I was gonna say get shit done, and and I think that's okay for us to say in the podcast. It's not
Hey,
just
part of it is authenticity, right? That's where independents stand out. But what have you gotten done, and what do you want to get done in that 1,000 or so days you got left, as at least in your first term?
No, absolutely. And so one of the things I brought with me to city government is this framework called strategic doing. And I'm glad we're talking about getting shit done. It was in my inaugural speech. It was seen in my 100-day plan. And my poor team, they've been working hard. I mean, my communications team is back here. They can attest to how hard they've been working. But it's all about getting things done on behalf of the 500,000 people I am sworn to serve. So I brought this framework called strategic doing. And what it does is that it helps you move plans into action through collaborative relationships and then through measurable actions. And you're looking at those every 30 days. You're reflecting the last 30 days and then looking at the ahead 30 days. And the 5 areas, 5 pillars that we're focused on for this year, and in about 20 items, action items in general. And they're in the areas of public safety. I mean, many cities are dealing with that. When I talk public safety, we're dealing with the issues both upstream and downstream. We're looking at housing solutions. Many American cities are dealing with a rising cost of affordability and housing. And so that's something that we're taking on with new strategies and innovation. Infrastructure is a big one. We're in the middle of that. And if you live in the great state of Colorado, potholes is just an unfortunate reality of the blessings of our weather, of the great Colorado weather. It gets warm, it gets cold, warm, and back and forth. So it creates these cracks in our asphalt. So we're working on that as well. And one of the, actually, in those 5 pillars, I'll tell you one of the things I'm most excited about is the 5th pillar called community activation. And we are taking on things like mental health and behavioral health. And the Surgeon General has warned that social isolation is the biggest public health crisis of our day. And so, you know how we're addressing that? We're doing this summer, we're doing 1,000 neighborhood gatherings across the city. So we're encouraging neighbors, we're encouraging neighbors to party.
Come party with Yemi. That's it, right? I mean, you know, I think it's such a great through line because, you know, people need, you know, sometimes they don't understand that, you know, the city's 500,000 people. That's a significant size city. And you're dealing with the issues that they hear about in all the other big cities, Chicago, New York, Miami, LA. But you're also a laboratory, right? You're able to get these things done. You're able to show how government can work and how leadership can work and how bipartisan should work. Let me ask you to zoom out, right? Nationally, you know, folks are thinking about everything from the migrant crisis to Gaza and Israel and Ukraine. But can you look at the national political environment? We've got this showdown now with Biden and Trump. And right now we've got RFK Jr., we've got Jill Stein, we've got Cornel West. Can you give us your assessment of this national clash that we're going to see, where I've said pretty consistently, independents are strong, but we don't really have a great horse to bet on. Can you know, honestly, if you were running right now, I think you would do better than RFK Jr. I think, you know, you are truly an independent. You weren't a Democrat, you know, 3 months ago. You're not a 9/11 conspiracist. I mean, there's other pieces, but people want something, and this is what we've got. So in some ways, I think many of us are going to be kind of branded badly with the candidates that are at the national level, right? When they hear independent, they think Jill Stein or Cornel West, one of many I would argue is maybe not even really an independent. They don't know about Yemi Mobolade or even Evan McMullin, or we could talk down ballot. Can you give us your assessment of this national political environment and how independents fit in?
Well, you are stretching my political framework because you're talking to a guy who's local. Topophilia, the love of place, is in Greek, and I love this place. But part of living in Colorado Springs is also I'm connected to this place called the United States of America. As everybody else is watching, I'm watching the presidential elections as well, and the one of the challenges that we have, as you've actually named, is just we have this 2-party system. And I don't know, and I appreciate your kind words and that your belief in me that if first of all, if I could run for president, which I can't because I'm not a born citizen, I'm a naturalized citizen. But if I had the opportunity to run for president, how successful would I be? I still question whether or not any independent will have that opportunity, just because it's one thing to accomplish this on a local level. And I don't want to minimize what a feat that was, especially in my city. But the national level, it's a lot harder. And what we lack is the mechanism and the vehicle to take an independent party candidate and move them into the national scene. It's a system that's been kind of hijacked by a two-party system, but part of me is glad to see this massive exodus out of the party system, because I feel like it's going to force the need for maybe a third party, a fourth party, like we had in the mid 1800s. You had the Whig Party, you had all these other parties. It wasn't just two parties, and I think America is ready, and I think we're hungry for other options. So, like everyone else, I'm paying attention. It is my intent to have a good relationship with whoever becomes president. We have a good relationship right now with the White House, and if President Trump is president, we will have a good relationship also under his administration, because ultimately part of being independent is the ability to work across the aisle, work with different political values, different types of leaders, and that's one of the things that I'm most proud of my leadership. It's the ability to work with so many different types of people, as long as they want to work with me as well.
Well, Mr. Mayor, first of all, I think I'm one of many who think there needs to be a constitutional amendment to change that restriction on the birthplace of presidential candidates. It was something that people said, discouraged Arnold Schwarzenegger from running when he could have potentially been an independent candidate. But I want to press you on this question and ask you, as one of I think most important leaders, not just in the independent movement, but in national and local politics, are you going to endorse anybody? Are you going to endorse one of the independent candidates? Are you going to endorse one of the two-party candidates? Are you going to sit it out? What are you going to do?
Well, I so appreciate this question, because I felt like you're making me feel really important when you say you're going to endorse someone. I'm like, man, you're going to endorse somebody? That means I carry such great weight. I'm probably not as important as people see me. So no one has asked for my endorsement. No one has asked for my involvement. So at this point, I'm just kind of sitting it out and not really endorsing everyone, because I'm just not as engaged with national politics.
If they do ask you, I mean, RFK Jr. is going to ask you. I'll guarantee you. I mean, he's been asking a lot of folks. No Labels asked a lot of people to run. If RFK Jr. asks you, for example, I mean, he's the leading independent in the polls right now. He's going to get ballot access in a couple of states. I don't know if he'll get ballot access in Colorado, but he will get it in Utah, likely. What would you say to him if he asked you, hey, I'm the leading independent candidate. You're one of the most high-profile independent guys. Can I get your endorsement?
I would be flattered, but I do not know him well enough to still endorse him. I would have to do my research, and if that opportunity ever came my way, which I highly doubt. But I ultimately it'd be, if anybody asked me, I'd definitely be flattered. But at this point, I'm really just sitting back and watching. And part of my independent thinking is I want to be able to put Colorado Springs on the map and give my city an opportunity. So I'm looking forward for the ability to work with any of those candidates who become president, and ensure that we have a great working relationship on behalf of the citizens of my city.
I know you want to stay out of some of this stuff, but somebody said to me once when I heard someone say, "I'm not into politics," they said, "Yeah, but politics is into you," and and I think that's true of you especially. I mean, right now the dominant story in America is that a former president is being tried, for criminal accusations here in New York. One of what might be many. This is arguably one of the most divisive moments. But do you have any, as a guy who is viewed as someone who is honorable and is trying to bring honor back to politics? We've got a multiple times indicted former president right now standing trial. What are your thoughts on that right now?
I love how you said that. I'm writing it down. Bringing honor back to politics. I get good language from you.
I'm here to help, man. One team, one fight.
In terms of the political landscape, I really don't have much to comment on the former president. I do feel like we're living in. You hear this word a lot, and I even hate to say it, because I felt like it was a word of 2020, unprecedented times. And truly, we are living in unprecedented times, and where we're seeing. I think it's actually quite miraculous to a former president who's running again and being indicted and being sued and still performing as well as um, he is. I had an interview recently with the Washington Post interview with the Washington Post. I had an interview with the Washington Post recently to talk about migrant crisis and my story in Colorado Springs. It was a great story. But I remember at one point in the interview, I think I mentioned something to the team, what do President Trump and I have in common? And I think she kind of looked at me very, very weird. And this is really important. What I'm about to say is really important for. So it's less about President Trump and what he's being indicted for, and some of the political drama around him, but it's what he represents. And I believe, actually, let's go back to Obama before we talk about Trump. When Obama was running for president, and he was a 2-year junior senator, and the Democratic Party laughed at him and said, that's very cute. You have no opportunity. Like this is not even a story." And what happened? He became president. He was able to appeal and connect with the hearts and minds of American citizens. Trump, similar story. He shows up, and I don't think the Republicans took him seriously. Like this is cute. This is not a real thing. And he ended up becoming president because he was able to connect with people. And both of those presidents were not. They didn't become presidents through the traditional way and method. There were people, leaders who were able to connect with American citizens. And I feel like that's what I share in that story of those two presidents, that America is looking for more than just the traditional establishment. When I got into the race in Colorado Springs, there were a number of people that said, "That's cute. That's not a thing. That would never happen." And here I am sitting at this seat. And so what unites all three of us is that we're different kind of candidates. Well, we're not the traditional candidates. America is tired of the establishment. America is tired and ready for independent thinking, one that is not bought. In some ways, those two former presidents represent that. So we need to bring that thinking into the presidential landscape. Whichever way this goes, is that we need to understand the values of American citizens and where people are at today. There's a deep hunger for leadership that is not bought, and that is not traditional. That doesn't belong to establishment and some of these really powerful political entities.
I think you're really right about that. I mean, the commonality between Obama and Trump and you is they represented a movement, right? Like the old Marshall Gantz theory is it's about we, not me, right? And that's, whether it's Trump tapping into grievance or Obama, tapping into hope, there's a power in that. But there's also, I love your humility, but, there was a mayor who ran for president named Pete Buttigieg, who represented a small city that was 1/5 the size of Colorado. Right? South Bend has about 100,000 people. Colorado Springs is 500,000 people. So on the macro, I think you represent a lot of things, but also the intersection of all these issues. And look, if RFK Jr. was smart, in my opinion, he would have asked you to be his VP. But I also would argue Trump or Biden, could ask you to be their VP, because independent people are looking for someone they view as independent. And until they get that, we all want The Rock or someone else to kind of break this glass ceiling and create a movement. I really think that you are the best case study for our movement. I said that in my introduction of you last year.
You did.
And I still say that now. Do you see any other, to that point, Yemi, you are inspiring, Mr. Mayor, apologies. You are inspiring a movement. Do you see any other independents? Is there like a cool independent club that I'm not invited to yet, where you guys have beers and you're Colorado, maybe you're having Coors, but are there other independents that you've met along the way that you're like, hey, keep an eye out for this guy or this gal that's on their way up or out there doing good work?
Well, you can move to Colorado Springs from New York so that we can hang out at my cafe and bar, and we can sit and talk about the future of the independent movement. Our mutual friend Andrew Yang has his independent movement going under Forward Party. Andrew Yang has done a great job connecting his movement with the heart and soul of Colorado residents. And so I have met a number of people in my city who are interested in the Forward Party. These are both Republicans and Democrats. And so I know that all these small movements of independent party. And I wonder if there's an area, and we're talking philosophically now. I just wonder if there's an opportunity, perhaps, to combine some of these independent movements, and they're not in competition with each other. I know Colorado Springs is a city. I've talked to a number of residents that are interested in something new and more. And the Forward Party is one that I hear chatter about. And I've met with Andrew a few different times too. And we keep in touch. And he's asked, like, hey, would you help participate in our movement?
Well, it's the pieces, right? Like if Forward can create the ballot access, if we can create a network of field organizers, but ultimately what we need is that leader to kind of be the lightning that sparks all this into the next level. And I continue to point people to you as that leader right now. I can't think of anyone who represents our movement better than you. I want to ask you, you're going to stick around for a couple quick fire questions for our Patreon members. I hopefully will be out in Colorado this summer and we can have a drink or a coffee or whatever at your cafe. We can invite Andrew Yang and Arnold Schwarzenegger and anybody else we want. But let me ask you this.
It sounds like we can have a joke.
No, hey,
Andrew Yang or Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mary Yemi step into a bar.
You know what, right? I mean, I've talked about this on the show. We talked a lot about Jesse Ventura. We talked a lot in the past about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Plenty of people who thought they were a joke. Ronald Reagan. I mean, there are plenty of people who said, hey, they're a joke until they were inevitable, right? Or until they were in the office. And I think that we're in one of those moments. But let me ask you this, Mr. Mayor, as a final question. What do you think is the most important thing happening in your administration that the country needs to know about? What is happening with Mayor Yemi Mobolade's administration and Colorado Springs that can be kind of a kernel of knowledge, right? In this time of hardship and division. Hey, America, I know things look bad. I know everybody's ripping each other apart, but look at what Mayor Mobolade and Colorado Springs are doing. What in your world is a hope for the future about what can happen here?
Oh, that's such a great question. It was almost last August is when I met the president for the first time. I remember what he said was, what's happening in Colorado Springs is really special. And the rest of the country should watch that. This is a national model. And I'll tell you what we're doing that I feel like the rest of the country should pay attention to. And it's not new, frankly. I have a few books up there. One of my all-time heroes who I share a birthday with. His name is Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States of America. Abraham Lincoln and I share a lot of similarities in our leadership style and approaches. In fact, for a contentious meeting that I had earlier this morning, I opened up the meeting by quoting Abraham Lincoln. I have a big ass quote in my conference room, and it says, Abraham Lincoln said, with malice towards none and with charity for all, let us strive to finish the work that we are doing. And if God could use the president, the 16th president of the United States of America, to help unite a fractured country in the mid-1800s, I mean, we're all beneficiaries of that leadership. If God could use a guy like that to help unite the country that should have not been the United States of America, I believe the same can be done today. And that's the type of political leadership you will find on my team. You'll find that my two rivals from my campaign, my two rivals, the other two candidates, between the two of them, 40 plus years of political experience. Yemi is kind of the newbie. And both Sally and Wayne Williams are now working with me. Sally is on my mayor's office of community affairs, representing me in government, legislative, and military affairs. Wayne Williams, who I had to run off with, is on my mayor's advisory council. And so we're all working together. I found a way to take rivals, to take enemies, and bring them to the table. And it's very strategic because not only does my leadership go a lot further, and I'm tapping into leaders who have leadership experience in their own right, I'm also connecting to their support group. And so all of a sudden, I've expanded my base. I wish we could get back to the days of where, in the mid-1800s, where you have a presidential candidate who is picking a vice president from the other party. Mm-hmm. If we try that, that is true unity. I know the parties talk about unity, but real unity is reaching literally across the aisle and finding a way to work with challengers and enemies. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of my leadership, what we're putting on display, and how we're also raising the next generation of mayors and Yemis and leaders in our community who are watching the right way to this way to lead. I'll end with a quick story here where Wayne Williams, who we were in the runoff together, keep in mind it was an ugly election season.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a meeting with Wayne that he had set up, and we were sitting next to each other, and across the table were four business leaders. And I could just see on their faces how impressed and confused they were. Like, here's this man that I ran against, and we're sitting next to each other. We have a good rapport, and he is bringing his own people, his own supporters to meet me. And we're working together. Now, we don't agree on everything, but we found ways to work together on, and we both love Colorado Springs, and that's enough for us to find ways to work together. So I'm really proud of that. And as part of being an independent, and I really believe that we can restore democracy to our country that way. And democracy is really the welcome and the embracing of different ideas and trying to figure out how to make all of it work for the betterment of our citizens.
I love it. I love all of it. The team of rivals, right? And the team of rivals has to have a captain. And we are lucky enough in our movement to have you as Captain Positivity, the Hurricane Hope, the great and powerful Yemi Mobolade. You're going to stick around for a couple bonus questions for our Patreon members, but thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your tenacity. Thank you for being somebody we can root for. And thank you for what is to come, which is all the leaders that you will inspire. I'm going to, be in your corner always. I hope I get to see you in person, but for the rest of us, thank you for being among the first. It's hard to be first, and you've broken through in a way that's really, really important that years from now, I think we're all going to look back on. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all you do and for joining us again.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the work that you're doing too. Your work is about unity. So keep going. Thank you.
You got it. Stay vigilant, sir.
Thank you.